Can you guys hear us?
But we really want to share how personal development has changed our lives.
We get to go through this together.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hoy and Tomorrow. I'm your host, Veronica Estrada.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maribel Serrano. Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we are so excited to talk about so many exciting things that are happening in society right now. So I will let Maribel talk about our agenda and we will go from there.
So the past couple of weekends, we didn't release episodes because we were honoring what was happening and the movements that were going on and honoring the space to listen to other stories from other people. And so we just kind of wanted to allow space for that. So we didn't release an episode for the past 2 weekends. So we're happy to be back and have a discussion that is important to have. And hopefully many other people are having similar discussions as well. So we have an agenda, and some of the subject matters we're talking about might be sensitive. We're going to try our best to just be very embracing of everyone's opinions and of your personal story. We hope that it's something that you're able to find inspiration in and a light of hope throughout everything that's going on. So we're going to start talking about just the year 2020, the challenges that we've been faced with and the silver linings that we're also seeing. And then we're going to talk about the subject of race and a little bit about how that's shown up for us, why it's important to have those conversations, and certain actions that we can take on a personal level to be a more loving and accepting and tolerable society as a whole. And then we're just going to also talk about overall what is the ideal life that we want to be living as a nation and with each other. And so, there are several things in between all of those topics, but it's going to be an important conversation to have. Hopefully you're all able to gain something from it. We're also going to talk about how personal development has helped us into really taking on these subject matters in a way that is holistic and accepting. So yeah, Veronica, we can start talking about just the year overall, 2020.
I mean, we've all been going through it since the beginning of 2020, the beginning of a new decade. I think all of us are just so excited to have 2020 be our year and to start it off with the unfortunate passing of, the legendary Kobe Bryant and the other passengers that were in the helicopter. That was, I think, the beginning of a global pain and a reminder of our mortality. And globally, we saw people really connecting with his death and really everybody mourning that, right? And that was the beginning of what we all didn't know was going to be a very, very turbulent year so far, right? And then shortly thereafter, COVID struck. And again, that global theme and the global suffering continued, right? What do you think?
I mean, I was going back through some of my pictures on my phone and I saw a lot of quotes that I had from December and November about 2020. It's going to be the best year. You're walking to the best year of your life. And I think all had such high hopes for 2020 in November, December, because, these are screenshots that I took of posts that other people were sharing. Suddenly we were hit with reality. And yeah, I agree with you. After Kobe's death, we saw a global remembrance and appreciation for who he was and the symbol that he was. And for us in LA, it was like an honor to see that because he's an Angelino like us and representing, LA with his profession in such a beautiful and honorable way was amazing. And so
thinking
that was something that the things that have happened have been shocking. They're not just like, little things that have shown up here and there. They're shocking. They're shaking up the world. I don't think that this is happening out of coincidence. I really think that maybe we need to take a step back and really pay attention to the things that matter. And that's why we're talking about like uncovering and discovering our current reality, because I think that a lot of it was just going over our head, and we thought like, oh, everything's fine, we can move on with our lives. I think a lot of people are panicking still and trying to understand what's going on, and that's why there are a lot of conspiracy theories going on and a lot of very strong opinions and high emotions, because this is all very different. It's very shocking. These are big issues that are happening.
And they're big, and they're shocking issues, but they're also things that have always been there. Death has always been imminent. It's always a part of the human reality. And the other component of this, where health is wealth, being healthy is really one of the most important, if not the most important things that we as human beings have. We saw that where COVID was non-discriminatory in who it took. And then it gets complex because we did see Black and Latinos and minorities being more impacted by COVID. So it gets really complicated, and we're being confronted again with challenging realities, right? And what really like set off the next wave of topics was George Floyd's death that we all saw. And that also led to a global movement of people protesting and really talking about, finally at a big level, systemic racism and inequality. And of course, for us, it's really about the US, but it also has started conversations all over the world. And we're seeing that this isn't something that's just about us, but it's a global movement and sentiment as well, that there's a system that the inception of it was kind of rigged against certain people and for other people. And now it's all coming to light more than other times, because we were so busy all the time. We were so caught up in our own world and our own problems. And now with COVID sending us all to our room, we all had an opportunity to be more focused on what really matters.
The system has definitely been established in a way that outcasts certain people based on skin color and also based on class. And once the foundation is flawed from the beginning, it should be expected that that's going to show, and that things are not going to be stable. There was a lot of injustice. So there's a tremendous need to address that, and also an opportunity to awaken to the fact that it's something that's always been there. Like you said, it's not new, it's always been there. And we're being confronted with it. For a lot of people, it could be very uncomfortable, but it's necessary to have these conversations, I think, in school, right? And to be very open and honest about the history of this country and how it was established, and about historical events such as slavery and other things that ultimately created what is the United States of America now, rather than suppressing certain facts that happened. They were reality. One thing that I was talking to Veronica about earlier too is that we talk about having the talk in other ways with kids, or if you have kids, with your children. And I have a little sister, and about 4 or 5 years ago, when she was 8, I had the talk about racism with her, and I explained to her what it was in a way that she'd be educated. She had a lot of questions, a lot of whys, like, why? I don't get it. Why are people judged on the color of their skin? How do you answer that for a child when they say why is there such a thing as racism? I showed her videos about the Little Rock Nine, when schools were being desegregated and how these kids were being bullied because of the color of their skin. And she was confused, but I think it's important to have these conversations, because we're going to be exposed to it at some point in our life. These things are not going to be taught to our kids in schools, at least not now. But it's important to give it an all-around education and what's been the reality. Really adopting how we have the conversations in our families, how we approach it in a way that it's like, this happened, and it may be uncomfortable, but it's also something that they're going to be exposed to, just like drugs, just like alcohol. That's inevitable to come up in their lives. Right. So with that, is there anything else you wanted to say about that subject matter, Veronica?
I think during the 2 weeks that we didn't release new episode in honor of the Black Lives Movement, and just all of us learning a little bit more about what biases we might have that are subconscious or unconscious, and understanding more about the injustices that are built into our system. I think that it's been enlightening, and it's very sad. It's very powerful. Again, being in personal development, we look for what can we learn from this? Where is the silver lining, if any, in this situation? And if you train your mind, like we've been talking about, you can always find something to learn from the challenging situations. And what I've gleaned in this time is that some of us have the privilege of having, those conversations with our kids or the next generation when they're a little bit older, and also like empathizing that some of our Black brothers and sisters don't have that luxury or the privilege. They have to introduce these topics to their kids a lot younger, and being in a space of understanding and love and trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And that's what I've been focusing on the last couple of weeks, and just trying to make this difficult time as palatable as possible for me, because I'm an empath and I feel a lot. So watching Netflix specials, different things that we shared on our Instagram around documentaries that have been made that are excellent sources of wisdom and knowledge for us. I just want to encourage everyone to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, doing that work, and honoring the movements that are happening right now.
You made a list of resources that are historical documentaries, and I thought that was really awesome. And also listening, being in the listening, rather than wanting to have a strong opinion when it's something that we personally haven't gone through. Instead of just getting really passionate and wanting to have a strong opinion, is really listen to the people that have this experience and ask questions, just get their world. And I think that it's so important. Sometimes we forget, and we're so consumed in our own lives, especially with social media. But really taking the time to sit with someone and listen to what they have to say is also very powerful. And there's an opportunity to take these things seriously and to acknowledge when something is evidently wrong. I think that everybody agreed that what happened with George Floyd was wrong, but what was missing was a strong, influential leader voice who can empathize and condemn the actions and acknowledge that they were wrong and commit to taking actions forward. We were missing that in our political leadership. It's so important to really be able to step in and call something out when it's wrong at that level. Another thing we've learned is, like, when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling, someone doesn't just risk their entire career at that level when it's the dream of so many.
Right.
For no reason. I mean, when somebody is taking a risk, even if it's a silent one, really consider, what is this person risking? It must mean something. Let's talk to them. Let's take this seriously. Let's get what's there, because he's not just doing that for fun.
Exactly.
That's a big risk to take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an opportunity for us to really understand when should be the time for us to take things seriously and to really listen and learn.
And ask questions from a curious perspective, from a very curious space, not just assuming that we know anything. I think a lot of folks thought that Colin Kaepernick was kneeling to disrespect. They made these assumptions and these stories up about what they thought what he was doing. And instead, if they had taken a few steps back and really asked him or heard what his message was about police brutality against people of color, it would have been a lot more clear why he was doing that. And it's the same reason why we're going through what we're going through now. But if we get so caught up in what other people say and we don't do our own due diligence, we don't do our own research and ask our own curious questions, we're not going to get anywhere. And we're going to have to keep learning the same lesson over and over again until we get it. And that's how the universe works. Let's humble ourselves and ask curious questions, continue to learn and have an open mind.
I love your point about humbling ourselves. We all should acknowledge that we all have internal biases because it's in our nature. We see racism in the Latino community and in Asian communities and in every community. It's in our nature to be attracted to others who look like us, talk like us, share the same language or culture. And it's not always the case, but it's what's most common because it's what feels safe and what reminds us of home. And I think there's a lot that is biological and psychological that's there. And acknowledging that we all have those internal biases and not make ourselves wrong for it, just acknowledging that that's there and making ourselves present to when we're judging someone else because they don't look like us or because they don't sound like us. Having that clarity of like, oh, I'm doing that thing, that judgment thing, instead of trying to defend that we're not bad people. It's like, doesn't mean that, but let's really look at the reality. Let's look at our circle of friends. Let's look at growing up, who are our best friends, who do we choose as partners, identifying that so that we can see that it's something that's there and notice it, making connections intentionally outside of that. I think there are a lot of actions that we can take. I think that a lot of it is going to have to come from people in power to make change, and we're seeing some of it already, but there are many things that we can do on a personal level as well.
I agree. And that's what this show has always been about. You know, it's always been about taking responsibility for ourselves and taking responsibility for our emotional fluency and understanding ourselves on a deeper level so that we can then show up in the world as more loving, inclusive human beings. Something else that you could do is definitely catch up on some of the past seasons of Hoy and Tomorrow, because all of this stuff that we're being confronted with, it's all personal development at the end of the day. And while it is important to have leadership that sets the tone, sometimes we don't have that. And like we experience, you know, sometimes our leaders are not there and we have to lead ourselves. And we have the opportunity to lead by example as well. This is it. We thought we were in it after Kobe, and then we thought we were in it after COVID hit, and now we're in it even more. So this is a wake-up call for all of us to take ownership of our lives and take ownership of our destiny and really get educated on ourselves and take care of ourselves. And like you said, when we realize where we have room for improvement, don't be judgmental against yourself. Don't make yourself wrong. Just know that you're human and this is part of the human experience and it's all a part of life and it's beautiful. You know, we got to take the good with the bad, and we don't know deep joy until you know deep sorrow. And so here we are. We're getting a little bit of both right now with the good news on DACA. There's definitely a lot of good coming from this environment, and I'm here for all of it.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing those wins in between. They're not final wins because DACA, you know, there's still the ability for it to be rescinded. But there's small wins to show that anything's possible, but it is going to take work and it's going to take a lot of being patient. But I love what you said about having to lead ourselves, because even if there is a charismatic, powerful leader, we still want to learn to lead ourselves regardless and not depend on someone else to do it for us. Ultimately, it starts at home. It starts in the workplace. It starts with being an advocate and taking action towards diversity and helping another person have hope amidst everything that's happening around the world today. It's challenging. It is very, very challenging in many ways. One of the beautiful things for me is that we're experiencing this and waking up together.
Yeah.
All of us. It would have been very different if it was a lonely wake-up call, right? But it's something that we all get to go through together and expand, and hopefully we just become better human beings.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's our only job, to be good human beings. So let's get after it. Let's continue to sharpen the sword of our character. Let's use these tribulations as an opportunity to continue growing and expanding our mindset and who we are and understanding others more deeply through understanding ourselves on a deeper level.
And with that, we went over our time, but I think it was important to cover several things that we talked about because there's so much going on. We didn't want to make this too long, but everything that's going on, it's just important to make certain points. So thank you all so much for watching and for following us. Again, our social media handle is @OyanTomorrow. Make sure you follow us.
Let us know what you think in the comments, like about all of the topics. We talked about so much, so let us know what your thoughts are, what you've learned about yourself in this time, and share this episode with your friends. And we so appreciate you supporting our work and continuing to stay tuned to Oyan Tomorrow.
See you all later.
Bye.